In this presentation, we will continue on with our bank reconciliation for the first month of operations, starting off with the reconciliation of the deposits. Here we go with Xero. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars dashboard. We're going to be starting off by opening up the trial balance. So we're going to go to the accounting drop down. We're going to go down to the old trial balance. Once that opens up, we'll duplicate the tab by mousing over the tab and right clicking on it and duplicating it. I don't usually use that word mousing, but I'm going to try to work it in, see if I can get used to it. Mousing over it. We're going to mouse over the tab. Then we're going to be changing the date down here. Going to make this up to, let's make it to January. We're going to be reconciling as of the first month of operations. That for us, January 31st, 2020. Then we're going to go back to the prior tab. I also want to consider the bank reconciliation report. So let's go to the accounting drop down. Let's go to the reports, and then we're going to go down to the accounting reports down below. There's a couple different ways, by the way, that you can get to this particular report, but I'm going to go down here to the accounting section. And we want to look for the bank reconciliation, which is right there. It's the second one. I totally couldn't see it for a second. So I'm going to open that one, and then we're going to duplicate that tab. Let's right click on that tab and duplicate it. So we got our trial balance and then our bank reconciliation. Let's open this one up as of the checking account. We want it for the checking account as of the date of January 31st, the end of the first month of operations. Now, this report obviously isn't right now. It's not correct, but we'll get an objective of what we're trying to do here as we go. So what we're trying to do, we have the trial balance over here. Here is the checking account, and that does not match what's on the bank statement as of the same point in time, the same date. Here's our bank statement. It's at 109,917. The difference could be the items that we haven't entered into our system, which will be the case because we haven't entered these two into our system, and outstanding items that we have entered into our system, but which have not cleared this bank statement yet due to the fact of timing differences. We entered them in our system on the correct date when we know they are incurred, but they haven't cleared yet the bank statement. So then if we go back over here, then we can see that on the reconciliation report. And we're concentrating in on the deposit side of things at this point. So we have these items down here. We haven't checked anything off yet as having been reconciled, as having cleared the bank yet. So all of these deposits down below are items that we haven't cleared the bank. And those are going to be then in this reconciliation. Or we have a mark as not cleared the bank. They actually have. So we're going to go and say these have cleared the bank. And once they have, these will all disappear, right? Because you can see these items have cleared the bank. Here's the beginning balance. There's the 25,000. Here's the 65,000. Here's the 65,000. So as we mark them off as cleared, they will then show up, be removed from this report. And then I think there's one item on here or so that isn't on our bank statement. Let's see if we could just see it right here. It's like the 50,000. No, the 13. The 13. No, the 9. This amount right here hasn't yet cleared. So I think we're just going to be remaining with this amount left. Just at a quick glance type of situation here. And that'll be the reconciliation item that we expect to be left after we do the deposit side of things. Other thing to note that it can be a little bit confusing in terms of the beginning balance here. When you first reconcile, the first time you do the bank reconciliation, you're going to have this, if you had the bank statement, you started the bank statement prior to the first reconciliation, then you're going to have this beginning balance you'll have to basically deal with. And so you could basically think of that as kind of a reconciling item. You could check it off as something that you're going to reconcile during this time period. So we're going to go in when we check off the items that have been reconciled. We're going to check off the fact that the beginning balance has cleared as well. It cleared sometime before the first bank reconciliation, in this case sometime in December. So as I go through and say, hey, these items are reconciled, I'll check off the beginning balance as something that is basically cleared as well. It cleared in the prior time period. And if you want to look at the data about it, then you have to go to the prior accounting software, prior accounting system, before the cutoff date that we're tracking things into this system, which is 2020. All right, so let's go back over. Then we're going to go to the first tab, and then we're going to the dashboard. Let's open up the dashboard, and then there's a checking account screen down below. There's a couple ways, again, you could get into this banking situation, the banking information. You can also go to the accounting up top and go to the bank accounts. But I'm going to go from the dashboard because that's like the home page. So we'll go from the home page And we're going to go down to the checking account information. Then we're going to select these three little dots. And then we're going to go to the account transactions. I want to look at the accounts transactions. This will give us, the reconciliation area. We're in kind of like the reconciliation area where we have the three tabs: the reconcile, the bank statements, and the account transactions. Now, we don't have the bank feeds going here, so we have to manually just basically say that the items that have been reconciled, instead of kind of tying them out to the bank feeds that would be coming through. Again, we'll talk about bank feeds at a later time. So to do this, remember that you have to have the little question mark up top, and you want to, this should say that you have enabled the reconciliation. It says now mark disable reconciliation because they're currently enabled, in other words, which is what we want. We don't want to disable them, but if you have not enabled them, this will probably say enable, and then you do want to enable. Okay, so then we're going to go back over here, and once that is the case, then we'll have this added little more button, and that allows us to mark as reconciled or unreconciled. So all we're going to do now is go back and forth and check off the items in January as reconciled if they have cleared the bank. So I'm going to go down to the bottom because the January stuff's at the bottom. Now note we have some stuff from December, which is our beginning balance, and that's fine because it didn't reconcile in December. It's reconciling. We're gonna mark it as it actually did reconcile. This did in December, but it's the beginning balance, so we're going to check it off as reconciled. And we'll see that if we had outstanding items in the prior month, we could mark them off as reconciled in the current month if they had reconciled in that time period. Okay, so we're going to go back and forth. If anything, we're going to always be going from the bank statement back to our books. We're not going necessarily from our books to the bank statement because remember, our thought is that if it's on the bank statement and not on our books, then we probably have to fix our books. If it's on our, meaning we have to add the transaction to our books. If it's on the books and it's not on the bank statement, that's probably okay, because if we're doing a full service accounting system, we may have entered it into our books, but it had not yet cleared the bank. Those are the reconciling items that we're looking for. So I'm going to start off by doing the beginning balance. You would not have to do this unless it was, except for the first bank reconciliation. So since this is the first bank reconciliation, I have to say that $25,000 has cleared the bank sometime prior to this reconciliation. So this one has been cleared. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one. Let's just see the difference when I mark it as reconciled, and then I won't do them one at a time. I'll kind of batch them together. So if I go up top, then I say more, and I want to say mark as reconciled. Say mark that as reconciled, please. And it's giving us a warning because it really wants us to connect the bank account, which we'll talk about bank feeds later. But it says it is recommended that you only mark as reconciled in cases where the original bank transaction data cannot be imported. We're going to say, well, we're not doing the bank feeds right now. We'll talk about the bank feeds in a future presentation. So we're going to say, don't show me that again, and mark it as reconciled, please. Then if we go down below, we see that one is reconciled. Let's see what happens to our report as we go over here. If we go down to our second tab, our report for the bank, this one right here, that $25,000, we just called it reconciled. So you would think it would disappear from this report as we update it. So let's update this report. And then if we scroll down, it does indeed disappear. So it's functioning, it's working the way we would suspect that it would work. So now we're going to go back over and just do this for the whole thing. I'm going to highlight these as we go. Here's the $65,000 over here. I'm going to mark it off. I like to make it green, actually, to say that it's reconciled instead of yellow, because that means like, that yellow tells me something has to be done. Green's like it's good. Green means it's done. Okay, that's, I don't know. Anyway, now we have the $50,000 for the deposit. So that's going to be this one. So now I'm going to check them off, and then I'll reconcile them all at the same time. So there's the $50,000, checking that one off, and then the 8438. So where's the 8438? There it is. I'm going to check that one off. I see that on the bank statement, so that one's okay. Going to make that green to indicate the fact that it is okay. And then we have the 13192. So here's the 13192, checking that one off. Going back over here, and we say that one is as well okay. Okay, so there we have those, and we've tied them out. So now I'm going to reconcile all those. I'm going to go back up top, and I'll reconcile them at one time. I'm going to go back up top and say more and mark as reconcile, please. And then they've reconciled them. And if I go back down, they're all green. See how they think green means that it's good too, because they said they make it. That's how it is. Okay, so those are all reconciled. Then if we go back over to the reconciliation, And if I was to update these, all of these should disappear because I think we found this one, this one, this one, and this one, and we'll be left with just that 996 that's not reconciled yet. So if we go back up top, let's see if that is indeed the case. Update this and go back down, and we're left with the 996 and the 65,000. Is that one over? 65,000 I think is here. I don't know why. Did I not reconcile that? Let's go back to the first tab. Yeah, I missed that one some. Here's the 65,000. That one's on there too. So let's reconcile that one. Go back up top. I'm going to say that one's found. Did I make it green? I made it green, but I didn't mark it as, so are any of these 65,000? No. So let's go ahead and reconcile that. I'm going to say this should be reconciled as well. And there we have that. And so that one's green. Now if we go back over here, that 65 should disappear as well. Let's update that. It's downdated right now in the past, and now we're going to update it to the present. And there we have the 996. So now we're left with just that. So again, here's our beginning balance for the books. And to reconcile it to our bank balance, one of the differences is this 996.45. That 996.45, if I go back over here and see that that was written on the 28th, or we deposited it on the 28th. That means it may not have cleared the bank till February. Now there's two concerns here. One is I just want to know what that difference is so I can reconcile, number one, and that gives me assurance that all the other balances are correct when I do that. Two, I might be concerned if that actual check cleared the bank. I'm like, well, you know, it should have cleared the bank. Well, as long as it cleared in February, and notice we're going to do the reconciliation process sometime after the end of the month, because I have to have the bank statement, so it's probably like February something by the time I would do the bank reconciliation. I could just go to my bank account and say, hey, did this clear in February? And if it did, fine, that's fine. It's just a reconciling item as of the end of January. It cleared in February, that's good. So two things I'm trying to do here. One, find amounts that may not have cleared and double check them in the following month. But two, just get those reconciling items so I know exactly what they are. And if I do, then I can be sure that everything else is in there properly because I've been able to reconcile our books to the bank's books. Notice as we do this too, we're reconciling two sets of books. We entered the data on our side, the bank entered the data on their side, and we're tying them together and seeing the timing differences. That's different if you were to rely on the bank feeds entirely, which again, I'm not saying you shouldn't rely on the bank feeds entirely. It just depends on your system, but just notice the pros and cons of that. If you relied on the bank feeds entirely, then of course you wouldn't know about this 996.45. You wouldn't have it on your books, even though you made the deposit, because you're waiting until they clear the bank, which is going to take a little longer, and then it won't show up in your system until you have the deposit from the bank telling you got the money, instead of you checking to the bank, you know, the books that you have on your side to the bank side. So again, we'll look a little bit more on a cash basis system and the pros and cons of it and being more reliant on bank feeds when we get to the bank feed sections. But just to understand the reconciliation process, if you're totally reliant on the bank, you would not have a reconciling item down here because you would be waiting until it cleared the bank and be completely dependent on the bank. But you still want to reconcile to make sure that you haven't double inputted anything or deleted or missed something in some way. Next time, we'll do the same thing for the outstanding or for the decreases in the checking account, the checks and other decreases. So that's it for now. Let's get out of here.